When Ukraine struck the Omsk refinery, we all marveled at the brilliance of the strike. A nation that just 4 years ago had no long-range weapons that could hurt Russia on its own turf had just hit a refinery thousands of kilometers away in Siberia. Questions were asked: how did Ukraine do it? What type of drone did it use? Now we have our answers. Nothing in Russia is safe anymore, as Ukraine has built something that Russian air defenses cannot stop. A 3,400-kilometer beast unlike anything that has been seen before. Russia can't hide from the storm that's coming, as Omsk saw Ukraine send a message that it can now hit almost every single major target on Russian territory. Ukraine has a new drone. Scratch that, it's not a new drone. It's a remix of the drone that Ukraine has been using to batter Russia for months, the FP1. That drone now has a new cousin, and it's delivered even deeper strike capabilities to Ukraine than ever before. The FP1ER is here, and this is everything that we know about it so far. The first clues that something new was in the skies over Omsk came from the co-founder of Firepoint, Denis Shtileman. As the smoke rose over the Omsk refinery, Shtileman took to X to deliver a simple but game-changing message. Omsk refinery meets the new FP1, he said, and he followed up with a second message that simply stated 3,400. With that, we got our first insight into what's now been dubbed the FP1ER. An extended range version of Firepoint's FP1 drone isn't just in production, it's in the air, and it's proven itself to be devastatingly precise, exceptionally powerful, and capable of traveling thousands of kilometers while avoiding every air defense system that Russia tries to place in its path. The only thing that Firepoint has confirmed about its remixed drone so far is the range. 3,400 kilometers is about 3 times farther than the original FP1 can fly. Euromaidan press reports, and that will be enough to terrify Russia. Ukraine now has a drone that can attack every major Russian military, oil, and manufacturing facility in western and central Russia. Beyond that, Shtileman isn't revealing too much. However, analysts who have taken a closer look at the few images we have of the FP1ER in flight reveal that there are a handful of key differences that separate it from the original FP1. One of those analysts is the Grandpa Roy X account, which is run by a drone expert based in Canada. Roy took a close look at the FP1ER's wings and he noticed some key differences. The new drone's wings are noticeably longer than those on the original FP1, which provides more gliding potential and adds to the range of the FP1ER. Additionally, the wings also have a slightly different shape, providing a larger surface area. Again, that helps with gliding. It also means that the FP1ER can hold more fuel tanks than the FP1. There is also conjecture that the FP1ER is using some form of fuel injection, which offers a decent increase in range through greater fuel efficiency. However, that hasn't been proven yet. Very little has been. The FP1ER, despite this early analysis, still remains mostly a mystery. There are a couple of other things that we can be relatively certain about. First, the FP1ER that Firepoint has unleashed is even better than the modified version of the FP1 that everybody thought Ukraine was going to receive. In June, Firepoint presented an upgraded version of the FP1 at the Eurosatory exhibition in Paris. That exhibition revealed that the FP1 had indeed been fitted with an additional fuel tank, though Firepoint claimed that this would give the drone a range of 2,700 kilometers. That was less than a month before the Omsk refinery attack, so in just a few weeks, it seems that Firepoint has managed to upgrade its new version of the FP1 again to add another 800 kilometers to its range. Either that or the version of the FP1 seen at Eurosatory was a different drone entirely, and the FP1ER has been kept under wraps right until it crashed down on the Omsk refinery. Second, we can at least estimate the approximate price of the FP1ER. As Euromaidan Press points out, the original FP1 sets Ukraine back about $50,000 per unit. The FP1ER will cost more than that due to the large wings and extra fuel tanks. However, those additions won't be enough to raise the price of the FP1ER above Firepoint's other major long-range weapon, the FP5. That cruise missile hybrid has a similar range to the FP1ER, but it comes with a price tag of $500,000. It seems very likely that Ukraine will be able to buy several FP1ERs for the price of a single FP5, suggesting a price tag in the low six figures. Perhaps less. It all depends on just how much the fuel tanks and wing material contribute to the $50,000 price tag of the original FP1. What Russia is seeing here is a drone that has the ability to strike hundreds of targets and that can be built at a fraction of the cost of a missile. And that's worrying. It means Ukraine may be able to unleash large FP-1ER swarms in the future. As for everything else about the FP-1ER, we can only speculate. Mysteries still remain, starting with the drone's payload. The original version of the FP-1 has a 60-kilogram payload, which means it lacked the explosive firepower needed to pull off something like what we saw at Omsk. Firepoint later upgraded the FP-1 to accommodate 105 kilograms of explosives, and it seems likely that the FP-1ER uses a warhead of about that size. Likely but unconfirmed. It's even possible that the FP-1ER warhead is slightly larger, though that depends on whether the altered wings and extra fuel tanks can compensate for additional weight. The other thing we don't know about Ukraine's new drone is how its guidance system works. The FP-1ER may well use the combination of satellite and inertial navigation that you might expect to see in a weapon of this kind. However, Russia has electronic warfare systems that can jam satellite signals, and a drone traveling several thousand kilometers offers plenty of opportunities for that signal jamming to take place. Satellite navigation alone would be a risk, so it's possible that there is some sort of AI in play with the FP-1ER. What that AI may be isn't known, assuming it's even present at all. But it is notable that the enhanced FP-1 that was showcased at Eurosatory also came with a claim from Firepoint that its drones have started to receive AI systems. Again, no details were given. But it would make sense for AI to be used in a drone that can fly for 3,400 kilometers, if only to counteract the possibility of jamming, making the whole flight a complete waste of time. Finally, there's one more thing about the FP-1ER that we know for certain. Russia's best fighter jet couldn't stop it in Omsk. Soon after Ukraine's Omsk strike, photographs and videos started circulating on social media that seemed to indicate that Russia had deployed an Su-57 to stop Ukraine's drones. The Su-57 is supposed to be Russia's fifth-generation fighter jet, though there are plenty of doubts about the airframe's quality that seem to place it at the higher end of the fourth generation. Still, this is Russia's best fighter jet, and its combination of speed and firepower should be more than enough to stop practically any Ukrainian drone. But Russia's Su-57 failed multiple times. Euromaidan Press says that Ukraine sent around 7 drones into Omsk during its July 6th attack, which not only would have given Russia's Su-57 plenty of targets, but would have also increased the chances of those drones showing up on Russian radar systems. Indeed, Michael Bonnet, who is an analyst with RAND, points out that Russia deployed both an Su-57 and an A-50 AWACS, or Airborne Warning and Control System aircraft, to tackle Ukraine's drones. Bonnet says that it's the first time we've seen this combination, and it suggests that Russia's radars saw Ukraine's drones coming long before they arrived in Omsk. The FP-1 drones are slow and would have taken hours to reach Omsk. Unless A-50 and Su-57 aircraft were overhead 24/7, incredibly unlikely given how few, it means that these FP-1s would have been tracked for several hours to enable aircraft to get airborne, Bonnet says. Still, Ukraine's new FP-1ER drones avoided what should have been certain doom. That's likely due to them being small targets that can fly at low altitudes. While the drones would have still been visible on some Russian radars, flying low means that Russia's fighter jet had to head down to an uncomfortable altitude to confront the drones. Clearly, the Su-57 failed in its task. To fly this low highlights how difficult these drones must be to detect, Bonnet adds. Here's what Russia now seems to face. A new Ukrainian drone, which is really a remix of an existing drone that can fly 3,400 kilometers, deliver a large payload precisely, and can circumvent air defenses and evade Russia's best fighter jet. That's a nightmare for Putin, and we've seen the results of that nightmare play out in Omsk. We're about to reveal just what the FP-1ER did at the Siberian refinery. But before we do, this is a reminder that you're watching The Military Show. If you're getting insight from our channel, remember to subscribe and ring the notification bell to see more of our videos. Let's come back to the Omsk refinery. We've gone into depth on the type of drone that Ukraine used to hit that refinery, which is located in Siberia. But we haven't told you about the results of the strike. Those results are important. All of the redesigns and impressive specifications in the world don't mean a thing unless Ukraine's new drone can do damage once it arrives at its target. And boy, did Ukraine's drones do damage. Ukraine chose the Omsk refinery for a few reasons. The distance is one of them, of course. What better way to show Russia that it has a new threat to deal with than send that threat to a refinery that is around 2,500 kilometers away from Ukraine? A distance record was broken with the Omsk drone strike, and that's a message in and of itself. But far more importantly, the Omsk refinery is the largest in all of Russia. accounting for about 10% of all the country's oil refining, Euromaidan press reports. Omsk provides over half of all the motor fuel used in the Siberian Federal District and is capable of processing 22 million metric tons of crude oil every single year. Ukraine's strike didn't just target the refinery. The FP1ER proved its precision by taking out a pair of distillation units at Omsk that combined to enable the processing of 50,000 tons of crude daily. Satellite imagery that emerged the day after the July 6th attack shows us that Ukraine's drones managed to score 4 hits against the refinery. The ELOU AVT-11 unit that Ukraine struck alone has a capacity of 8.6 million metric tons of crude oil per year, and that is now a flaming wreck. Process pipelines were also hit in Omsk. What we see here is a level of precision that makes us question whether the FP1ER relies on satellite and inertial navigation alone. Ukraine's drones traveled thousands of kilometers and struck very specific targets buried within a sprawling facility. That's a kind of accuracy that nobody expected, and it lends more fuel to the fire of the AI targeting rumors that are going around. Rumors about the FP1ER aside, we know that Ukraine's drone has caused catastrophic damage. In a follow-up report, Reuters revealed that Russia has been forced to suspend processing at the Omsk refinery for an unspecified amount of time. Damage processing and assessment is already underway at the facility, and whatever repair work needs to be done will have to happen against a backdrop of Western sanctions, making it harder than ever for Russia to source the components that it needs to carry out its repairs. With the FP1ER, Ukraine has just severed Siberia's fuel artery, and it's done it at a distance never seen before. That brings us nicely to what all of this means for the future. First, Ukraine's refinery campaign just got stronger than ever. Striking Russia's largest oil refinery is a message that Putin can't ignore, but it comes on the back of an escalating refinery campaign that has left Russia in crisis mode. With the Omsk strike under its belt, Ukraine has now officially hit all 11 of the largest oil refineries in Russia, United 24 Media reported on July 7th. That is a strategic milestone simply because Russia's Siberian refinery wasn't ever supposed to be in Ukraine's range. Now it is. And what that means for Russia is that a refinery campaign that was already causing a ton of financial and domestic pain is going to become a whole lot more problematic. The 11 refineries that Ukraine has hit have a combined crude oil processing capability of about 156 million tons annually. That's without counting smaller refineries that Ukraine also struck. Once the FP1ER enters mass production, the refineries that are furthest away from Ukraine now become legitimate targets for the types of repeat strikes that Ukraine has been conducting against refineries that are closer to the border. In other words, we're expecting an Omsk double tap sooner rather than later. More refinery strikes mean a new level of Russia's existing fuel crisis can be achieved. That crisis is already spreading deep and wide across Russia. CNN reports that a crisis that started in Crimea as a result of Ukraine's logistics lockdown program has extended to touch almost all of Russia's 83 regions in one way or another. Queues at the gas pumps are stretching so far that it can take multiple hours of waiting to get to a station. And in many cases, those hours pay off with a gasoline restriction that means the average Russian can't even fill up their vehicle's tank. Prices are going up as fuel stocks run low, and there is frustration among the Russian population that is boiling over to fighting in some cases. Russia's response to all of this is to ban every type of major fuel export. On July 8th, the news broke that Russia banned diesel exports, along with jet fuel exports. That comes on the back of a gasoline export ban that is supposed to run to the end of July, but is very likely to be extended. And how do we know? Russia has announced that it's going to start importing gasoline and other petroleum products in July, and a nation that needs to buy fuel is hardly in a position to start selling again. Russia thinks it can recover from this crisis. Ukraine just showed Russia that any recovery isn't going to happen. A new long-range drone is in the air, and it opens up more refinery strikes than ever before. And it's not just refineries. Everything in Russia, up to Siberia, has become a target. The Georgian Foundation for Strategic and International Studies has an interesting interactive map. On that map, we see every military base that Russia has on its own turf, as well as elsewhere. Most of these bases are concentrated in central and western Russia, what looks like hundreds of them in fact. But about a third of the way across Russia's territory in the south we see Omsk. And what we know now is that Ukraine's FP1ER can literally hit everything to the west of that region. Oh, and remember that Omsk is 2,500 kilometers away from Ukraine. The FP1ER has another 900 kilometers in the tank. so it could well be capable of striking the collection of bases that Russia has developed to the east of the Omsk refinery. That's the aspect of this new drone that Putin may not even be accounting for. Ukraine's refinery strikes have been grabbing all the headlines, but every airframe that Russia has in a base that launches missiles and glide bombs at Ukraine has just become a target. The same goes for ammunition depots and military-industrial facilities. Of course, striking these types of targets is nothing new for Ukraine. As United 24 Media points out in a July 9th piece, Ukraine has hit 6 of Russia's major missile production plants since March. But the thing to remember here is that it was only in April that Ukraine was claiming that it had expanded its strike range by 2.5 times since the beginning of the war, reaching 1,750 kilometers. Just a couple of months later, that range has been almost doubled. That's what it all comes down to. Ukraine's reach has grown farther and faster than even it seemed to believe it could. It's not quite accurate to say that everything in Russia has become a target due to the FP1ER, but everything in Russia that might even be slightly relevant to Putin's invasion, that's become fair game. Ukraine's deep strike strategy has just leveled up, and Russia is trying to do everything that it can to stop it. There are reports that Russia has started to deploy powerful jammers that are supposedly capable of cutting off the Starlink satellite signals that Ukraine's drones use. If that's the case, they failed to stop the FP1ERs sent to Omsk. Yet another suggestion that AI is in place. On the air defense front, Putin has ordered that the manufacturing of new air defense systems must become a priority for Russian industry. That's going to be a tall order, given that Russia's air defense problem is nothing new, and the Omsk strike has exposed it as being a bigger problem than anybody thought. Russia's size has been used against it by Ukraine for a long time. Now, with the FP1ER not only ready but proven as combat effective, what was once Russia's greatest strength could end up being the weakness that loses Putin the war. Innovation lies at the heart of everything that Ukraine does, and the FP1ER is the perfect example. But don't forget about the front lines. With so much focus being placed on Ukraine's rear assault, it's easy to forget that there is as much brilliance on the front line as there is in the long-distance aspect of Ukraine's strategy. Do you want an example? Well, Ukraine just turned a fence post into an absolute terror for Russian ground forces. We know you want to find out more, and you can if you check out our video to see what Ukraine has come up with. And if you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe right now. We are the Military Show, and we deliver coverage like this every single day. And thank you, as always, for watching.